Good afternoon, friends. When Ramesh called me up to say that please come down to Chennai to address this convention on MMA, it was some kind of a thought process which got me going, that if I have to travel to Chennai for a couple of hours in a downturned economy, how are my customers going to take it? But then I'm assuming that Mackenzie's is going to pay for my travel because they're still probably making money. Because consultants are the people who actually make money in such situations. But friends, nevertheless, we are in a defining moment of history, if anything. Economics, the way it is getting redefined, and I see a lot of students at the back. So I've just remodeled my speech, and I hope that in an extempo way, that I would like to address a part of the macro issues which I also heard, and probably you would be hearing again and again, in slightly a different light. It's a world without Lehman Brothers, we thought were institutions. It's a world without Merrill Lynch, it's been taken over by Bank of America. A lot of the issues which petered out, none of the best of the economists, including the so-called Mr. Alan Greenspan, who had been the Fed chairman for such a long time, could ever profess that this is what kind of a downturn we're going to see. So people are always talking about whether it's a downturn, whether it's a kind of a meltdown. They have many words: recession, depression, all kind of words are coming about, and they sort of get to definitions around this. I'm not going to do that, but this event, once you cannot profess an event, you can't foresee it. There was, in 2007, a book came about called The Black Swan. How many of you have heard it or read it? So few of the students, few of the people here. Now that's an event which takes place, and that was by a gentleman called Nassim Taleb, and you must read this book, the guys who haven't, because it's interesting. It's a difficult read. You probably will go to sleep after a couple of pages, but nevertheless, keep trying. That when an event which you can't foresee happens, it has a major impact, major impact. It has not been professed, or it has not been predicted, and it impacts heavily. But subsequent to that, you get all sort of explanations why this happened, and everybody will tell you a why about it, and will have their theories about it. So it is definitely, people have called it tsunamis, black swan events, etc. But this is what we are confronting with, and it's good that MMA took up this thing called the uncertain times. In uncertain times, and at such times, what happens? Everyone becomes risk averse. Everyone just pulls back. And that's what happens with countries, with companies, with individuals. That's how it is. So, the capitalist country of the world, which had been professing that the planned economies have gone dead, I mean, that is, they have written epitaphs on that and sort of buried them. They're trying to now nationalize their banks and trying to run their economies pretty much, at least if not fully, in a half-planned manner, infusing the stimulus, which again they're facing is that, and I have a story around that. We were studying together way back in the 70s. We went to the States. A very close friend of mine went to work for Ford. He stayed back, and then subsequently 3 years back he sort of gave up the job, and he went to a Detroit restaurant in September. He had a hearty meal, gave his plastic cards as they give it at the end of the meal, and the waiter came right back and he said that there are no funds. So promptly this guy says, is it me or the bank? So in this situation, what happens? There's another word, and I'm sure the students probably would know it, because this was what Keynes way back said in the earlier part of the 20th century. It was called the basic paradox of thrift. If you heard President Obama, the recently elected president, every day on CNN, every other day, if not every day, trying to infuse and trying to prompt the consumer to go back to the market. And he's just not doing. And the consumer is not getting back to the market. So what's happening? You think back to Keynes and say, wow, this is Keynes in action. So for students, this is something that you can observe, and that's why I say it's a defining moment for you guys. You actually can see some of these theories in action. So what happens? When economies go down, people start saving. When they start saving, they don't buy things. The companies don't want to make things. They have excess capacity. Things get difficult, so they fire people. So the production goes down, and it's a whole spiral which restarts. And it would be good enough if the people saved. And incidentally, the last quarter, the US saved more than 2 times that they saved in the previous quarter. An economy which was just not used to saving has started saving. And that's making things more and more difficult for them. And there was, in the Detroit, on the 2nd of February, there was a headline saying, "Frugal living is bad for the economy." So, what happened when all these banks were going dead? The highest sale was of safes. The safes, suddenly people wanted to buy safes and put their money in them. You know, the thing would have been good enough if they were saving and putting things in the bank, and the banks were lending, so still the economies would move. But that also didn't happen. So it's, my friends, a very terrible cycle for all the consumer manufacturers, whether it be automobiles, whether it be shirts or trousers for that matter. It is a difficult time, because this vicious cycle has to change into a vicious cycle and to start moving up again. And this is basically the consumer behavior, or what is called the behavioral economics, which is in play. And that is also causing the nations to coin things like economic nationalism. And what we heard in the last session, that even the capitalistic economies which were talking from the top of the mountains about market economies, about WTO, and how they were pressurizing India to sort of come to table and come to terms, are now putting all kind of resurrecting barriers, including the